Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kahnversations. My name is Ryan Bailey. Really quick up top, I wanted to remind everybody, if after you listen to these podcasts and you don't already go to Leslie Kahn and you want to know more about it, please look us up at our website at www.lesliekahn.com or even call us in the office at 323-969-9900. We do classes, we do coaching, you need to put an audition on tape, we have film coaching. We even sell tear sticks, as I always say. So those are little sticks that you put underneath your eye. It has like a little menthol, it makes you cry. It's very cool. We sell those as well. So we are a one-stop shop for the working actor. Okay, guys. So this week I had a great conversation with our guests, but before that, I just really wanted to talk very briefly about something that you keep hearing in these conversations that I have. But it's about working, and not, I don't mean being hired, but us as actors working. Now, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean being hired by a TV show or a movie or a commercial? Actually, it doesn't always have to be. It could mean working for yourself. You could be working for yourself every day. You have to be your best salesman. So working every day for yourself, you could be waking up and doing 30 things to advance your career that you don't need somebody's approval for. Now, these might not be the most fun artistic things that we could be doing with our time, but it is something that helps us get further in this business of show. So whether that be picking out outfits for your upcoming headshots, practicing voiceover. You could be reading through screenplays. I mean, on our website for our students, we literally have every pilot known to man. You could be reading every day to see what you like, what you respond to, what you don't like. So there are always options for us to be working, to further ourselves, to learn more about ourselves, to learn more about ourselves in this business. And today's guest, I believe, we actually talk about that. We talk about how much she will work on her downtime. You know, in fact, there is no downtime. We're trying to get somewhere. So when you're trying to get somewhere, you can't just lay back. You actually have to move. You actually have to push. And sometimes that is such a foreign feeling for us. And it sometimes doesn't feel really comfortable having to push so hard. But we have to push so hard right now. We have to. It's the only way. We can't just like hope we're discovered at like, some drugstore, by some casting director. I mean, I don't think that's even Brad Pitt didn't do that. And he's Brad Pitt. So anyways, it's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately is how much work you actually have to do. Is that you might actually have a day job, but when you get off of that day job, you need to go to your other job, and your other job is you, and your other job is this profession that we so badly want to do. So anyways, I want to talk a little bit about our guest before we start the pod. Our guest today is Olivia Applegate. She is an actor, a multi-hyphenate. She's based out of LA, originally from Austin, Texas. She had a really interesting start, which we talk about. She landed a role in Terrence Malick's feature Song to Song. Now, if you don't know Terrence Malick, he is an insanely respected filmmaker. Look him up, watch his films. He is definitely somebody to study. But she was in that movie along with Ryan Gosling, Michael Fassbender, Natalie Portman, Rooney Mara, those unknowns. She then, continued as an indie darling. She starred in several critically acclaimed features, including Krishna, which won the audience and grand jury prizes at South by Southwest. Her indie film success combined with her star turn singing, which she actually was on America's Got Talent as a singer, but that got her representation in LA, which we also talk about. And so since she's been here, she's booked roles on NBC's Revolution, Fox's The Gifted, and the upcoming HBO show Euphoria. And this is a show I'm really excited about because I listened to the podcast, Bravo's limited series Dirty John, starring Connie Britton and Eric Bana. I am very excited for that. You can also see her as the lead in the streaming site Passion Flix's new series Driven. So Olivia also enjoys working behind the camera as a writer, producer, and director. Her most recent collaboration, Pink Lemonade, is on the festival circuit this year. She is also a singer, a cellist. She composes songs, and she performs songs for several of her film projects. So that is what a multi-hyphenate means, you guys. It means she can do a lot of gosh darn things. So without further ado, our guest today is Olivia Applegate. I hope you guys enjoy. If you do enjoy this, if you do enjoy these, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps us. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yay. I'm really excited to be here.
Okay, just right off top, and I said this probably in the intro, but I see you're drinking out of a Dirty John water, a fancy water bottle that says Dirty John on it. Now,
yeah.
So you're in the upcoming series Dirty John, right?
Yeah. I booked this guest star. I play Lynn, and I play a nurse, which is fun.
Are you? Well, see, so you guys, just speaking of podcasts, Dirty John was one of the kind of hit podcasts of last year that the LA Times produced, and it was really, really well done. But now they're doing a show on Bravo, which is an interesting network for them to go to, and it has a great cast of Eric Bana and Connie Britton and you. I mean, we usually start with how you got started in acting, but I saw this and I wanted to leap right into that.
Yeah. Well, it's actually a pretty interesting story how I got this job, and I think it sort of speaks to my sort of general philosophy about how this industry and how this career actually works. So I got this job because I'm friends with a producer who produces a lot of Alex Cunningham's shows. And Alex Cunningham is the showrunner and writer for Dirty John. And she's also done shows like Chance and several other things. And so this producer friend of mine, she had seen some of my work and was like, you need to be acting more. Like, let's get creative about getting you work. And I was like, I love you.
Let's get creative. Yeah. Yeah.
And so she started bringing me in for table reads for Alex's show Chance that was on Hulu with Hugh Laurie. And so I just came in every
just to
week.
Like help out.
Yeah, just to help out and read all the supporting roles. And it was great because that got me in front of all of these execs at Hulu. It got me in front of showrunners and show creators. And so I just came in and very consistently for a year did a really, really good job for Alex.
So basically
Cunningham.
you just showed up.
I just showed up
and you were prepared.
And was professional. And so Alex Cunningham and I became friends, and she just really liked me, and she kept trying to get me on Chance, but there weren't any roles that were appropriate or anything like that. And so when she got this new show, she brought me in for the initial table read of the pilot. And it just so happened that one of the lead actresses, her visa wasn't approved in time to be at the table read. So I got to read this like leading role and all of the supporting female roles.
Did you know in advance, or was that a same day?
They told me the day before, which thank God they let me know because the character is real sassy, this girl who wasn't there. And so it was really fun.
It was the daughter, right?
Yeah. One of the daughters. I think in the show she's called Veronica.
Okay.
But in any case, so I got to read this incredible role, and afterwards, Jeffrey Reiner, the director of the show, and Linda Lowy, the casting director, came up to me and they're like, "We think you're great. We're just going to give you a role on this show. Why don't we know you already?" And I was like, I mean, yay, thanks. And
that's
great
amazing.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that sort of, I think it really speaks to how long it can take for something to pay off, how long hard work can take to pay off. And also it speaks to just showing up and being a really professional
There's so many
person.
Steps to that. Like that's, I mean, I had a similar situation where I booked off a table read. Like I was just going in to fill like exactly what you did.
Yeah.
And I did good. Like, and I, they gave me a bit role, but it was still, it was because I showed up.
And
I
did a
didn't
good
embarrass
job.
them.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to Dirty John. So I
am too.
Yeah, no, I mean, Connie Britton in anything is amazing.
She's so good.
But that's awesome. So to go back now, where are you from?
Okay, so I'm from Texas, a couple places in Texas. I claim Austin mostly. That's where I lived for a while.
It's cool to claim Austin.
Yeah, it's cool to claim Austin. But I'm also from San Antonio, and I'm also from Houston. And I guess I got
Is there a reason why? Were your parents moving around a lot?
Yeah, so my dad's a professor. He's a scientist. He's in physiological optics.
Wow.
Yeah, and so...
We've had a lot of those on here.
Oh, yeah,
so far,
a lot of physiological optics people. Yeah, no, I come from a family of, like, scientists, so they've always been a little baffled by my...
Oh, my God.
by my creative endeavors.
Did they want you to go into whatever science tree?
Well, I had a... Okay, so I had a really interesting conversation with my dad about being in the creative industry, and this is sort of like this is a succinct version of the conversation. But basically, I was about to go to college, or maybe it was my freshman year of college, and I was like, Dad, I think I want to be a performer, because I also sing, and I was like, I think I'm an artist. I think I want to be an actor and a singer, and do that whole artist thing. And he's like, okay, well, you're really good at a lot of other things. Like, I was a really good student. I got a full ride to college, basically, and all of this stuff. And so he was like, are you sure there's nothing else you'd rather do? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I think this is it for me. I think I'm really passionate about this. And then he's like, well, if it's your passion, then you have an obligation to pursue it, and you have an obligation to pursue it with everything you've got. You've got to really go for it. And so I just feel super lucky as a daughter to have a father who would say something like that to me. I mean, and so, and same with my mom. My mom is a really creative person who ended up being a nurse, but is super creative. And my dad is creative too. He builds clocks for fun.
Yeah.
They're creative in their own ways.
High functioning, yeah.
Yeah, high functioning creatives.
Yeah.
And and so at the end of the day, my parents were really supportive. My dad's only frustration, and my mom's, I think, is that they don't know how to help. They're just like, we
it's out of their
it's
out of their element. It's out of their
purview.
Yeah, I mean,
really.
they don't really that's I've definitely been through that, but it is so lucky because so many people don't have that kind of support at all.
Yeah.
So then, did that mean when you were growing up, were you constantly in the school plays and singing and stuff like that?
I started acting more seriously when I was, I think, like in 5th or 6th grade. I was in a Shakespearean acting troupe. And
as you do in 5th and 6th grade, yeah, that's what everybody
So
does.
I was in this like kids Shakespeare camp.
Yeah.
And
let's make Shakespeare fun.
Yeah, right. It was called Midsummer Shakespeareans. It was like a hoot and a half. But I did that, and I fell in love with acting. I remember I've kept a journal since, I think, 4th or 5th grade, and I remember
Wait, do you daily journal?
I journal daily,
I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. Like, that's one of the hard, like, you feel guilty if you miss your journal and then you eventually give up on it. You daily journal.
I daily journal.
Like, how long does journal? I'm just fascinated with journaling. How long do you give to journal?
I mean, it really depends. Right now, I'm not spending a whole lot of time journaling. I'll just kind of like jot down some highlights from the day or whatever. But for a long time, I would journal before bed, and I would write about everything that happened that day or just whatever I was thinking about. And then for a long time, I was writing in the morning for like 30 or 40 minutes when I woke up.
Jeez, 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah.
My gosh.
It's crazy, though, because I find that, like, when I am in the habit of journaling, I have so much clarity and more clarity and context on my life when I'm doing that. And it seems like a lot of time to give up, but for the efficiency it provides me and the clarity it provides me.
That's so interesting, and it says something about you as a person, too, because I think a lot of people have a tendency to go into journaling, and then halfway through they're like, well, this is dumb. Like, what, like, or second guessing what they're actually journaling or what the flow is.
Yeah. I just find it's a great place to get shit out of your head.
Yeah.
You know? And it also, like, it's been wonderful for me to, like, look back and read about what I've experienced in my life, because it also really pointed out to me that people have a tendency to rewrite history and rewrite their memories.
You can. I
have something to go back to.
I just read an article about that, as how our memories are really false. Like I actually
Yeah.
saw a videotape of this where I'd always pictured it in my head one way, where I was standing in one area. I remember the whole memory from this one area, and then I saw a video of it, and I was standing in the complete opposite
Really?
side of the room. And in my
Yeah.
head, I could have sworn, like, our memories they sometimes betray us.
They're really fallible. They're really
Anyway, sorry, I'm
fallible.
getting off track.
Oh,
Go
it's
back
okay.
to Shakespeare, fifth
Oh,
grade.
Yeah. So I did that, and then so every day in my journal, I would write, "P.S. I want to be an actress." That's so dramatic.
Is there a journal fairy? Is there somebody that reads like where it's like she really
Right?
wants it? She's
I'm
said it
like-
10 times in a row.
Yeah, so for years I would just write that kind of out of habit, and also because I wanted to keep reminding myself that I loved it. And then I didn't do any acting in middle school. I really got into cello. I play cello, and I love cello. And for a time, I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to be a professional cellist.
Wait, do you have a cello with you in your apartment or wherever you
I
live?
do.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love it. I love.
Do you
playing
still
cello.
play?
I still play.
After the journaling, yeah.
After the journaling, I play cello. No, I actually just played cello on the soundtrack for a movie I just did.
Jeez.
Which is one of my favorite things to do. I love like overlapping these things
Oh,
that I love
yeah.
to do and folding them into projects. So I played cello in middle school and high school and college, and then in high school I got back into acting, and then in college I was like, you know what?
But in high school, you got back into acting. Was it the type of high school where you were doing the after school plays and all that
I was
stuff?
doing plays. I was in the like UIL competitions. Is
Yeah,
what
are
it's
you doing
called.
speech and debate and show choir?
I
and-
did all of that stuff, and I pretty much enjoyed it. But I also always kind of felt that the high school theater programs in my area just sort of missed the mark. Meaning, like, I think even as a young person, I understood that what I was being taught in school about acting, for one, was archaic, and two, didn't actually help you become a working actor or give you any of the necessary tools to do that.
Yeah.
Which ended up being kind of discouraging for me. So when I went to college, I was like, I'm giving up on acting. I'm not doing that, because I recognized that the theater program at the university, was yet again just like high school. It was like reading plays that were hundreds of years old, and it was, spending 6 weeks in your character's shoes. And I was like, that's really fun, and I love doing that. But I was like, but I would actually like to sustain my life.
How do I do this?
Yeah, how do I get paid to be an
Yeah.
actor and work consistently?
Yeah, because they have most programs have no concept of it. They're just trying to give you a place to go after school. And you're lucky if you bump into a teacher that has a passion for it. But even they are at the same place you are. They're just
Right.
like 20 years older than you.
Exactly.
So, and I was,
So-
Neil Simon passed away this weekend.
know,
Rest in peace. But I was thinking so much about him and how much he was involved in my high school years, because everybody in speech and debate ended up doing, you would always see Neil Simon scenes. It would be
Right.
like The Odd Couple, or they'd do the
Yeah.
female version of The Odd Couple,
Yeah.
and I saw when I was first in theater in junior high and high school, it was just like, I thought Neil Simon was the only playwright.
Right.
Because he was the only thing and then all of a sudden, like, I was like Angels in America, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This
There's
is so
so much
different
out
than Neil
there.
Simon.
Yeah.
So you had this feeling that you weren't actually getting taught anything that you could use to actually make money off of this.
Yeah, or have a career. And it also just felt a little outdated, the way they were approaching the whole thing, which is part of the reason why I fell in love with Leslie, because, you do her intro workshop, and the first thing she says to you is like, oh yeah, it's not that those things are wrong, it's just that they take too long. They're really old, these like methods that I was being taught. And I was like, that makes so much sense to me. And so, but anyway, and so I sort of had given up on acting. And then another magical sort of serendipitous thing happened where I was like, I actively said no to acting, and I was doing music. I was in a band, and I was doing all of this cool music stuff.
But
in
what kind of
Austin.
band?
Well, I've been in a bunch. At that time, I was in a duo called Eric and Olivia, which is actually the duo I was in that was on America's Got Talent.
I was going to ask you this eventually, because I did not know what you were on America's Got Talent for. I just saw it on your.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was like, you're not a comedian, or like, I didn't know if it was
No.
the stand-up section. So you were in a duo and
and that was actually really funny. So I had been saying no to acting. I've been saying no to doing pursuing anything creative for my profession. I was doing philosophy because my intention was to do pre-law, and so that was sort of the track that I was on. And then I started doing music, and then it was really funny because my guitarist and I, Eric, we had won like a citywide talent show, and then were scouted for America's Got Talent. And when we were scouted for America's Got Talent, neither of us understood that it was the reality TV show that it is, because neither of us watch shows like that, really. Yeah. And so we're like, sure, we'll go to this audition. We just thought it was a national talent show, much like the citywide one we had just done. And then we show up and we're like, wait, wait, what's going on right now?
Wait, you're not the duo that like they try to like
make a
make a love connection?
Oh, yeah. They tried to make a
Oh,
love
my God.
story.
I remember this, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm not even I never really watched the show. I like Howard Stern, but I think I only saw it, but I remember.
That was us.
That was you. That's
that
crazy.
Was us.
I actually remember that.
Yeah, so we were on that show really accidentally. And yeah, so it's just this crazy experience.
So wait, and when was that? Was that right out of college or?
Yeah, I think it was. Wow, I was 20, so it would have been, I guess, my sophomore year in college, something like that.
So I mean, were you looking at? I mean, but that was. Did you even know at that same time that it was like an ends to a means? Like, well, I'm not getting exactly what I want here. This is a way to.
I just was sort of riding the horse in the direction it was going. I was like, this is a crazy thing that just sort of fell into my lap. And I loved singing. And I think part of the reason it fell into my lap is because Eric and I were just doing it because we loved it. And so to loop back to the whole acting thing, I was doing this America's Got Talent thing. And I was like, well, I guess I'm like a singer and I'm going to just sort of ignore acting. And I'm not doing that, but really I'm going to just go to law school. This is like a fun little side thing that I'm doing with the singing stuff. And then a friend of mine, this guy Jacques, he sent me an open casting call for this movie. And he was like, look, I know you're not an actor anymore, sass. And he was like, but this is you. This character breakdown is you. It would be a shame if you didn't audition for it. You should just go. And I was like, ugh, all right, fine. Jacques, just for you. I'll go. I'll audition for this movie to appease you because I care about you or whatever, you know. I was a 19-year-old, like dumb little girl. But so I go and I end up booking this movie because it really was like me to a T. I just went in and was myself. So I booked this movie. And then
at this point, had you done any kind of?
I hadn't done anything.
Yeah, like okay.
I had done nothing.
Yeah.
This was my very first booking. I went in. I didn't even bring a headshot. I had no idea what it was.
You don't have any kind of Texas agent, do you?
No, I had nothing. It was an open casting call. I just went, and so I went. I ended up booking it, and then it just so happened that casting director, this woman Vicky Boone, she was then about to cast this Terrence Malick movie that was coming through Austin. And so she called me up.
Wait, was that Tree of Life? Or
no, it's...
Oh, is it the Ben Affleck one?
No, it's the other one. It's got Rooney Mara and Ryan Gosling and...
Oh, is it The Rock, the music festival?
One. Yeah, it's called... Wow, wait. Oh, my gosh.
The Great Wonder?
Song to Song.
Okay.
Yeah, it was called Wonder for a minute, and now it's Song to Song. But in any case... So then a couple months later, she called me out of the blue and was like, hey, I think there's a role that could be right for you in this project I'm casting. Would you come in and read for it? And I was like, sure. And she couldn't tell me anything about it. I had to sign all these NDAs. And it turns out it was this Terrence Malick movie.
And what's so funny, you guys listening, is Terrence Malick is kind of a... I mean, he's so well regarded in film, but at the same time, not a lot of people outside of like film buffs and you know, people that really, really, really love film know who he is. But he was like the '70s auteur with like Badlands, Days of Heaven, all these kind of really great. And then he kind of disappeared for a long time, and he picked back up in like the late '90s, I think, with like Thin Red Line. But just really his own style and how he shoots, and he's very like a recluse, but just kind of does what he wants to do. He's not into publicity at all. But it's great. Did you even know once they even told you the name that you're like, okay?
Yeah. Well, no. Once they told me the name, I was like, oh my God. Because I love movies. And I really like Terrence Malick. I had seen Badlands. And I was like, what is this movie? This is incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'd seen that. And I was just, I'm so glad I didn't know that the audition was for him until afterwards, because I would have been a nervous wreck about it.
Yeah.
So I went in and did this audition, and then 3 weeks later...
And was he there at the audition?
No, it was just a taped audition.
Gotcha.
And it was just weird improv. It was very strange. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but there were no sides or anything. And then 3 weeks later, the casting director said that production had, quote unquote, responded to my audition. And I was like, okay. She's like, what's your availability September through December of this year? And I was like, well, I'm in college, but like I'm free, I guess. Like, what's happening? And then another week later, Terrence Malick calls me directly and he's like, hi, Olivia, this is Terry. And I'm like, Terry who? He's like, Terrence Malick. And I'm like, what? I had a really weird start to my career. I maybe peaked very early. I don't know.
Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah.
It's insane. And this is all happening while I'm still telling myself that I'm not an actor, that I'm not doing this, I'm not pursuing acting.
This is before or after America's Got Talent?
This is right in the middle of America's Got Talent.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really crazy. I was like rejecting being an artist, and the universe or whatever was just like, hello. Like,
wow.
What are you doing? Which is crazy. And I think it speaks to people really want to hire people who don't need it. Right? Like who aren't needy
They're
or
not
desperate.
They can't sense it.
Yeah. And so I had this like weird confidence that I guess was really appealing because I really, for one, had no idea the enormity of the opportunities I was being given, and two, was convinced it wasn't what I was going to do with my life. So I was just there to enjoy these crazy experiences that were happening. And so I've always tried to keep that in the back of my head that like I've always had the most success when I'm doing it because I love doing it, and that's what I'm thinking about when I'm doing it. And so anyway, so I end up getting coffee with Terrence Malick, and which is still really weird to think about. And we talked, and he's fascinating. He just wanted to know about me and who I am. And
did you tell him honestly, or were you making up here's why I'm great?
Like, no. Yeah. I was like 19 or 20 and just really had no clue about anything. So I just I had no pretense. He wanted to know about philosophy because I was studying philosophy. You know, he's a philosopher himself. And so we talked a lot about philosophy. We talked a lot about Texas and my family and all of this. And then at the end of the conversation, he was like, well, Olivia, here's the thing. You're too young for the role that I want to cast you in. So one of three things will happen. We'll either age you up in makeup and just cast you anyway. I'll write a new part for you, or you won't get cast. And I was like, okay. I was like, wow, what do I feel right now? This is really intense. God. And he's like, okay. And he's like, but there are a lot of plates spinning, so, I'll get back to you when I can get back to you, but that's sort of where we are. And I was like, okay.
In your mind at all, were you like, if he really liked me, he would have just given? I mean,
no.
Was there any negative?
I don't think I could even get that far. I was just like, what is happening? I was like, still through the whole experience playing catch up to what was happening. I was like, this isn't happening. Is this real? This is really happening? And so then it turns out he wrote a part for me, and then I was in this movie.
You were in it. Wow.
Yeah, and I actually made the edit, which is another fascinating
Yeah, because by the
thing.
way, I mean, he has huge actors that end up on the cutting room floor.
That end up
huge
not
actors.
even making it. And the only reason I made it is because I played Rooney Mara's sister, and he ended up making the movie about Rooney Mara's character. So I just got like really lucky.
So you did, how long was that shoot? Was it just a couple days?
Yeah, I was just there a couple days, and it was really fascinating. I showed up, and I'm in the hair and makeup trailer, and in stumbles Terrence Malick, and he has two little kids with him, and he's like, Olivia, these are my grandkids. They're your kids in the movie. And I was like, oh, I'm a mom in the movie? No idea.
Yeah.
Like no clue. I had no sides. There was no script. There wasn't anything. And again, this is the second set I'd ever been on.
Why he thinks that's the way to go with doing the art, with actors and stuff like that.
Well,
it works, but
it was really interesting because I think he definitely had. It wasn't like there was no script, and it wasn't like there was no material. I just was such an ancillary character. I wasn't given anything.
Yeah.
But like Rooney had sides she was looking at. Ryan Gosling's in it. He had sides he was looking at. And it was really interesting because some of the actors who were in this movie loved it and really like took to it, and the improvisational nature of this thing. Like I was doing a scene and I was introducing myself to a character, and my character's name was Emma, and I'm like, hi, I'm Emma, it's nice to meet you. And the other actor, got really weird and like avoided answering the question because we were just improvising the scene. And then Terry cut, And the other actor, he was like, I'm so sorry. He hasn't given my character a name yet. So I didn't really know what to do. And that was Ryan Gosling. And he was like the lead in this movie. And he had no name. And they were like 3 weeks into shooting.
That's
and I was like,
crazy.
what
Oh
is
God.
this? So
Ryan
anyway,
Gosling going home each night wondering
being like, who
is.
am I? Like, so some actors like really loved it, some didn't, and I was so green. I was just like,
But what was that
cool.
like to all of a sudden be on an actual movie set with Ryan Gosling?
It blew my mind. I mean, for one, as a 20-year-old girl being on a set with Ryan Gosling right after Crazy Stupid Love came out, the only thing going through my head when Ryan Gosling was around was like, just try to be normal. Like, just just don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, that's as far as I got with Ryan. But it was just this really surreal experience. And so I really enjoyed the crap out of the actual experience. But then I had like a whole existential crisis afterwards, because I was like, I realized shortly after that I'd been given this crazy opportunity and I wasn't equipped to make the most of it, because I wasn't as skilled enough as an actor yet. I wasn't savvy about the industry. I didn't know what I wanted from acting, and I'd just been given this huge golden ticket. And so I became really overwhelmed.
But are we ever ready for anything that we...
No.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, but I will say that I definitely now, 5 years later, have a lot more tools in my toolkit,
Yeah.
I was just young. I was just like a...
Is there anything you remember on set that you couldn't do?
I just remember it wasn't so much that there was stuff I couldn't do. It was that I just didn't understand how sets worked. Like, for example, I was being followed by a Steadicam, and this is another thing. Terry, uses all natural light. So he's like, this is all Steadicam, Olivia. I didn't know what a Steadicam was. And he's like, so you need to keep moving and you need to stay on the axis of the sun. So walk forward and backward on the axis of the sun. And I don't really like names, so don't call the children by their names, but make sure they stay in the yard. Just walk forward and backwards. And I was like, what is acting?
I'd be like, what is axis? I don't even know what the axis of the sun is.
Right? I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so I remember at one point I stopped moving, and they had to cut because I stopped moving, and they were like, Olivia, you need to keep walking. And I was just like, oh no, I don't know how to do all these things at once.
Yeah.
What's happening? So I was just really nervous the whole time, but really excited, and everybody there was lovely. And Terrence, he remembered I was on set probably a month after the day that we had our coffee, and he remembered so many details about what I had told him about my family and my siblings and my relationship with my sister, and all of these really specific details that he just remembered.
Oh, so he's like a normal person.
He's like a normal
That's how
person.
normal people should be. They
Right?
should remember conversations
Right?
that you have.
And I just found him to be remarkably magnanimous and just
I think that's
really
because
loving.
he's really avoided all of the trappings of Hollywood completely. So he's able to actually just be a normal person.
exactly
that
who he is.
He's just a craftsman, other people.
Yeah, which I'm really glad that was I'm really glad that my foray into acting started in the indie film scene in Austin, and then with somebody like Terrence Malick, because that sort of set me up to understand what kind of projects I like to work on and what kind of people I like to work with, and realize what my values are as an artist, and not get too swept up in the hullabaloo that is Los Angeles.
Yeah, which is super easy to do. Yeah, and it's fun to a degree.
Oh, it is. It's super fun, but I think it's helped me be a little bit more grounded as a young person in this industry. So I'm super super grateful to it. And it's just I just feel really grateful because it's the craziest start to a career ever.
But Austin does have this great scene. I mean, you had, Richard Linklater and Robert Rodriguez and all these people that kind of come out of there. And, Richard Linklater especially has a really interesting working style, and it really is all about the story and the art and stuff. And it's really... Roots are good.
He's so great. And he has a ranch out in East or West Texas, somewhere in the boonies of Texas, and he just brings artists over and has table reads and does all kind. It's just a creative haven, and that's where I came from, and it was this really pure place, and it's really nice to be able to go back to that and remember what got me excited about acting in the first place, and it really was this sort of the true collaborative nature of what it takes to come together to make a thing like a movie or a TV show. And
a lot of the times you don't get the chance to do that out here, you know?
Which is...
Or when you're solo working on an audition or trying to memorize your lines, it's not sometimes the most collaborative process. If you don't have, you know, a class, you know, here at Leslie or the actors to work with, it can be a really fairly lonely existence.
Oh man, community is so important, like ridiculously important, I think.
So you do this, you did that film, you have an existential crisis.
I did.
Assuming you're in the hospital for a while. No, but, so where do you go from there?
So I do this. I do the Terrence Malick movie, and then another movie comes through Austin called Parkland, which was this movie about the JFK assassination. And I went in and I auditioned for Jackie Kennedy, and I'm obviously way too young for it, but the director really liked me, and so this is another really serendipitous thing.
Who's the lead? Is that Kevin? No, it's who's Parkland?
Zac Efron's in it, and Paul Giamatti, and I don't totally remember now. It was a while ago. But in any case, I do this thing. I don't get the role, but he sends my tape to Lena Rockland, who is his wife. And
oh, really?
Yeah. And I didn't know any of this was happening, right? And so then I'm in Ohio playing cards with my grandmother. It's Christmas time. And
what part of Ohio?
She lives in Manaway, Ohio. It's just outside of Cleveland. Are you from Ohio?
Columbus. I was born in Columbus.
Oh, cool. Yeah, all my family. I've got a bunch of family in Ohio. But in any case, I'm there, and at this time, I'd been getting a lot of random calls because I somehow had left my phone number up on some public forum, and I just did America's Got Talent. And so I was getting all kinds of spammy phone calls, like, I'm an agent, I'm a manager, you should be on my show or whatever. And I was really getting very tired of it. And so I get this call from this Russian woman, this very loud.
Hello, Olivia.
This very loud, aggressive Russian woman claiming she's a big manager in LA. And I'm there having quality time with my family. And I was like, you know what, lady? I don't know you. Please don't ever call me back. I'm spending time with my family. It's almost Christmas. I don't know why you're calling me. I was very aggressive with her. And then I hang up. And then right before I hang up, she's like, honey, just Google me. Google me. And I was like, I hang up on her. And then I'm like, wait a second. I feel like maybe I'll Google her. Maybe I'll Google her. Just be sure. And I look up Lena Rockland, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. Like,
I mean, did you immediately, or did you do this a day later?
I did it like a day later, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. And so then I call her back, and I was like, oh, Lena, I'm so sorry. I've been getting all these spam calls. I had no idea you were legit. And she was like, oh, honey, I loved it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, she must have gotten a kick out of that.
She had so much fun with it. And so we've been working together ever since. But she just sort of plucked me out of the blue. And we had an interesting back and forth because I was really adamant about finishing school, and she wanted me to move out immediately and start acting. And I was like, no, I'm gonna get a degree. And so I ended up graduating early and then moving out to LA. And then it was a whole new learning curve once I was in LA, because I was good enough to book a lot of stuff in Texas. I wasn't good enough to book a lot of stuff in Olympic City. And that's part of the reason why I really loved finding Leslie, because she's the person.
Did you find her immediately?
No, I found her. I went to Anthony Meindl's first for a while. I like puttered around. I'd say maybe I started going here like a year after I moved here, maybe. Something like that.
And how long ago did you move here?
I moved here January of 2014. Yeah. So I'm coming up on 5 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. Ooh, here comes the next
existential crisis part too. Yeah.
In any case, I really liked working with her because she was the one who really got into my head, like, oh, you're not an exception to the rule. Like, you really, really have to put in your 10,000 hours and become a really skilled craftsman of this thing so that you can be really consistent every time you audition. And that was the thing I needed to hear, because I feel like I was, quote unquote, talented, but I was totally inconsistent. I had no idea why it worked when it worked and why it didn't work when it didn't work.
I talk about this all the time, is that it's like this thing that if you don't have training, you're just fumbling around in the dark, and sometimes you're going to find the light switch and boom, amazing, but most of the time you're just going to bump into a bookshelf and hit yourself, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that was my experience. I didn't know how to be consistent. And I also just recently was reading some Joseph Campbell. I guess I'm still a philosopher. Oh, here's Khaleesi. Leslie's dog is here with us. So I was reading this book and Joseph Campbell was talking about the difference between, like, for example, being a dancer and somebody who likes to dance. He's like, oh, you're a dancer when you have technique. Being an artist requires technique. Otherwise, you're somebody who enjoys dancing. You're somebody who enjoys going to the theater. You're not an artist. And so that's what I was lacking. I was lacking technique.
Which Joseph Campbell book? Because Joseph Campbell actually is some. George Lucas loved
Hero's
Joseph
Journey.
Campbell. This is how he created Star Wars. But we actually talked about him on another podcast, and he keeps coming up. He's definitely somebody to pay attention to or something.
Yes,
yeah.
I would definitely, I super duper recommend his books. And they definitely have like a bit of an academic philosophical slant to them, which I love because I studied philosophy.
Yeah.
But he just really understands storytelling and is such an artist himself and has really great things to say about what it is to be an artist and what it is to tell stories and like sort of the human experience in general. He talks a lot about myth. He's an expert in myth. Yeah. And so I was reading Hero's Journey and that he said that and I was like, oh yeah. Like that's what separates the wheat from the chaff is technique. So I came here.
And you still wanted to get technique. You were like, you know what? Yeah. I want to continue.
Oh, I was like, dear God, please, like, give me something I can hold on to. Like, this is such an elusive thing. And so then I started taking classes here and got really consistent. And now, it's just such a long game career.
It definitely is. But take me back to that first year you were here. I mean, was it failure after failure? Were you getting close on anything? And by the way, this is the first time you're actually going into rooms. Like, what was that whole experience like?
Oh man, I was totally unprepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that you're. Yeah. It's not like college auditions.
No, and this led to the second existential crisis, which was because I had this thing on my resume that I was Rooney Mara's sister in the next Terrence Malick movie, right?
It gets you in the door.
It got me into all of the doors
that you shouldn't have gotten into.
Doors I was not ready to walk through, like not at all. Yeah. And so I was doing all these auditions, and I didn't know enough to know why I wasn't booking. Yeah. Because I knew the Austin film scene, and what I was doing in those rooms would have gotten me work in Austin.
Yeah, did you think you were like, I'm doing pretty good?
I was like expecting success.
I knew my lines.
yeah. And then nothing and nothing and nothing and nothing, and then I got dropped by my agency, and then
what is Alana saying this whole time?
Yeah, so Lena is just, she's like, you're a young, beautiful leading lady. We've got this great thing on your resume. Let's just keep sending you out. And I don't think I was doing bad enough that I was getting like terrible feedback. Yeah. I think I just wasn't popping. And so she was just like throwing me out there as much as possible. And this is another thing that I think I'm really learning is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great your reps are. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. It really matters how you manage your own life and your own career, like really at the end of the day. Because it took me reflecting on myself being like, why isn't this happening? Because unfortunately in Los Angeles, nobody's looking out for you as much as you need to look out for yourself is sort of the thing that I've experienced. Yeah,
nobody gives a shit.
And you have to be the one who holds people accountable in your life and in your career. Like I was not holding Lena accountable in the ways that I should have been holding her accountable. And I wanted to make that Lena's responsibility. But the reality of Los Angeles is that it's not Lena's responsibility. Lena has 162 clients. She's going to do the most efficient thing she can to be helpful. And any sort of like detailed work you need to do on yourself, you just need to do it. And that's sort of the thing that I have been gradually learning in the last like 4.5 years here in LA. And so it took me self-reflecting, being like, okay, obviously something's not working. I know Lena's a great manager. She's getting me into all these rooms. It boils down to me. And so then I got really involved in taking acting classes and just was like, let me become the best actor I can possibly be. And so I just grinded it out.
Are you okay if it doesn't happen?
I think the way I feel about that, the first thing that pops into my head is that it already has. The good things, the things that I wanted, it's already happening.
That's exactly right. Yeah, right? I mean, that's it. I mean, it's what it all goes into the same bank. It's all who you are as a person and your day to day, and I mean, and we talk about that here at Leslie's too, is that there's, wanting to be, there are certain actors that say they want to be an actor, but what they're really saying is they want to be a celebrity.
Yeah.
They want to be a
totally
celebrity.
different.
That's, like, oh, I have to act to be okay, I want to be a celebrity then. There's, most actors just want to eke out a living if they're even thinking that.
Right.
Like, oh, wow, I could pay my bills. That would be amazing.
Like, what a win. Yeah.
But then, it's just interesting how, like, people have different wants, and it's like, well, it sounds like you more want to be a Kardashian,
Right. And there's really a difference. And I think it's so fascinating that in this country, you could call Kim Kardashian an actor and you can call Meryl Streep an actor. That's a really fascinating mentality we have about the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And I definitely, once again, I feel so lucky that I came from that indie film scene because it made me realize that what I love about this is the actual work of it, is the actual work, acting, the pursuit of that, and the coming together with a group of creative people to make a thing. And that's what I like.
What do you consider? Getting specific, what do you consider work as an actor? Like, what do you consider it, breaking that script down? What is work to you? What does a normal day look like for you if you have an audition?
Right. Well, a thing I always like to say is that you might not always be employed, but you can always be working. And so that sort of speaks to what I think work is. Right now, I don't have any auditions, but I have 3 scripts I'm going to read today. That's me working.
Just ones that your friends gave you, or ones that you found?
Yeah, I just did this. I just worked on a project up in Utah, and they have another script, and I was like, I'd love to read it if you want to send it to me. I'm reading that one. My boyfriend has a script. I'm reading his script. A friend of mine from Austin has a script. I'm reading that script. I just try to be reading material all the time. I also, coach here.
Yeah.
And that's great. I consider that working as an actor too. Breaking down scripts constantly, paying attention to what's out there. I feel like watching TV can also fall under the realm of work. Keeping yourself in the mindset of wanting to be a creative and doing something every day that keeps you feeling that way is what it is to be an actor, I think.
Do you feel like you hit that most days?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I feel like most of life is maintenance, and so I work to maintain myself as an actor all the time, and that's also includes getting headshots edited and uploading, re-editing my bio, and getting new materials to my reps, and reaching out to people I've worked with before and seeing what they're up to now. Every day I try to do something career related that helps me move forward and keep momentum.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so necessary. You have to because it's your career is sort of self-regulated. You have to regulate it, and it's self-generated.
And it's really hard for actors because we're not, a lot of us aren't type A. A lot of us are I just want to be creative and da-da-da. So I have to write something down that says I have to be somewhere sometime. It's very difficult. You're asking these artistic people to be their own managers and agents, and there is a science to it.
Yeah.
To harken back to your dad, there is a science to this, but we're putting the science into hands of people that are like to just kind of imagine,
who like to play with Play-Doh and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard. It's just it's. Well, I always think about this too. I'm obsessed with this thought of if Daniel Day-Lewis hadn't made it, but he came to LA. And he was 15 years in, and he was going to commercial auditions. Daniel Day-Lewis has the luxury of being so good, and he hit it out of the park immediately that he, was able to establish this way of working. But what if he hadn't? What if he came to LA and had to eke it out and drive to Santa Monica every day for a commercial audition? And he's there with Bounty, and he's but what does this mean? He's really trying to give it all. How would he deal with this?
Right? It's this weird thing that it's a game of last man standing. It's a game of serendipity. What happens when the stars don't align, right?
Yeah,
and
because
do you
keep going or do you not keep going? And there's, everybody says there's these forks in the road, and you are the captain of your own ship. So you don't want to go down with the ship, but it's saying, I mean, I don't know. It's all really interesting. Do you remember, have you had any kind of just complete bomb auditions? Like, did you ever
Oh,
have, or was
oh,
it all just, I just had
yeah.
mediocre?
Oh, yeah, no, I've bombed some stuff. I remember one time, it was when I was new to LA. I hadn't prepped an audition because I was in the middle of this existential crisis where I was like, I subconsciously understood that I wasn't good enough to be going into these rooms yet, but I was still going into them. So then I just got terrified of working.
That's what I'm
on
saying. Did you
material.
start like getting scared to walk
I
into
got
rooms? And did
terrified.
you exhibit that in any kind of nervous behaviors?
So I went into this audition and I'd forgotten my sides, and they didn't have sides in the office. And so I got there and I was like, I'm so sorry, I forgot my sides. And the casting director was having a day, and she was like, really? You don't have your sides? Are you memorized? And I was like, no, because I hadn't really prepared that much because I was terrified. And so I really bombed some shit. I really learned some tough lessons when I first got out here, and it was really, really hard because I was given so much opportunity right off the bat, and it was a really tough pill to swallow. And I could look back on that and think that I squandered some opportunities, and I could be a lot farther along in my career if I had, been a better actor when I got to LA. But the way I think about it is that, wow, it just sounds super cheesy. Everything happens for a reason. But I really do think that had I become successful at that point in my life, like really successful, like lead on a TV show successful or something like that, I wouldn't have been equipped to handle what that actually meant. And so I don't think there's any such thing as a shortcut. I think the long way is the shortcut. I think that's a fallacy most people fall into, is thinking that there's a shortcut and that's actually effective. And so I'm really grateful that I didn't get these huge jobs right off the bat, and that instead I had I fell flat on my face and had to pick myself up and learn the actual skills to maintain a career in this industry.
Yeah.
And now I know them. And fortunately, Lena stuck it out with me. She recognized something in me 5 years ago and has just stuck through it. And
do you ever get are you still with me? Are you still? Do you ever get that actor? Because actors get really.
Yeah,
we tend to be nervous Nellies about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and it is weird because they say that they're doing all of this work for you, but then I've also learned that unless you stay on top of people, they will forget about you. So it always is a balancing act of learning how to keep your reps motivated to work for you. And also not be a needy client.
Yeah.
Because once again, neediness is like the ultimate buzzkill. It's the ultimate turn off.
Yeah, she's calling again.
Yeah, you don't ever want that to be the reaction. So that's an interesting thing to learn to navigate. I remember when they were trying to set me up meetings a couple years ago, after I was dropped by my agent. And, Lena told me that she was working on meetings, and then it was like radio silence for 2 weeks. And then I sent her an email, didn't hear back. I called, I didn't hear back. I sent another email, I didn't hear back. And then she finally called me and she's like, Olivia, it's really annoying that you're doing this all the time. I'm working on it. Please leave me alone so I can get this done. You're being really annoying. And I was like, okay, bye.
You're being annoying.
I was like, what? But it's funny because they weren't telling me anything. So how was I to know that anything was actually happening?
But then how does that not scare you into ever, how does that I would be scared to ever send an email ever again to somebody checking in on things?
Yeah, I know, right? And then you just learn, this has been the thing that I have learned recently, is that something that is so important, I think in life, but it really sticks out when you're in an industry like ours, is that you really have to understand and have a real sense of your own value as well as what you value, because that is a remarkably clarifying knowledge. And I just realized, the kind of relationship I want to have with Lena is one where I can check in, and that's not a problem. And so I started believing that in my head, and I'm like, I'm just going to check in the way that I want to check in and communicate with her in the way that I know I should be communicated with, and have the type of relationship with her that I want to have. And then if she shows up to that, then great, I stay with Lena. If she doesn't, then she's no longer should be my manager.
Yeah.
And so she showed up to that. Once I came to the table understanding, not as a needy, desperate, nervous, scared actor, but as somebody who's like, oh, I'm a professional, I'm good at what I do, I want to know what's happening, and came at it that way, she responded totally differently to that. And so that's sort of what I'm learning right now.
Now, going over your IMDb, it seems like in the last year and a half, like you've done so many things in terms of like films, short films, like kind of all over the place. What do you attribute that to? Do you attribute that to just, I'm just more locked into what I'm doing and
Well, I think it kind of speaks to this career being a long game. Not that I can really claim that yet because I've been in LA 5 years. It's nothing. But seeds that I planted in like the first or second year of moving here are paying off now. And so I also recognize what an interesting time it is for women in the industry. And so I was like, I should definitely throw my hat into the ring for like writing and producing and directing, which got me excited about doing short films. So I was like, let me start trying my hand at these things, because if ever a woman is going to get hired to write or direct, well, it's kind of like right now.
This is the moment. Yeah.
I was like, it might as well be me.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and
you were constantly writing your own stuff too.
Yeah. So I'm writing my own stuff.
Did you teach yourself how to write? Did you go to workshops? Did you just stumble through it?
I started reading a bunch of books. I started reading scripts, paying attention to how they actually functioned, as opposed to just reading the story as an actor. I just, it's like anything, you put your 10,000 hours in. I'm just studying right now. And I do not claim to be a good writer yet. I'm so far from being a good writer.
Is there anything that you're like, I'm not good at this, so I'm going to leave this alone?
Well, I think that something that's really helpful is realizing that I am capable of learning things and remembering that. So when you start out and you suck at something, remembering that you're at the very beginning stage of learning a new thing.
So guys, and that's our kind of one of our big mottos and has been for a long time, is dare to suck.
Yeah.
Because, and Leslie always says, hey, come suck here in class, so you can be good out there.
Oh man, I am such a believer in that. And I think it helps you once again sustain yourself in an industry like this, is accepting and believing and really recognizing that you will continue to get better and better and better. Like recently I had an audition where I had to sing and play the piano, and I hadn't played piano in years. And what I did in prepping for the audition is that every 30 minutes I would do a new recording of me playing and singing, because I sucked. It was like really bad. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this together in time for this audition. But I recorded myself every 30 minutes and I got better every 30 minutes. And I had to show myself that I was improving. And so I think believing that you are capable of getting better at something is so critical. And it's what helped me stick it out when I really thought I was a shitty actor.
Yeah, and I think you constantly as an actor get reminded this, and it really is how you take it or not, how you personalize it or not, of just, I was in a voiceover class the other day, a one-on-one, and she gave a note about something about my INGs, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I think the tendency for a lot of us is to take that in and been like, she's saying I'm an asshole.
Right.
She's saying I'm an asshole, and I can't believe she caught me on this. And I'm like, and you know what it is? It's when I was a kid, and like you start, you have this, or you could be like, oh, that's a note. And of course I wouldn't know that because this is like the first time we're kind of hitting this lesson. So oh, and all I do is just listen to the note, and then I just practice this and keep going. And it has nothing to do with me as a person, like zero to do with me as a person. Oh, she's still like, okay, but it is, I think, our tendency as artists to personalize to the extreme, where it really can really hurt you when you're supposed to suck.
Right.
The first time doing anything, you should, there is that natural thing of like sometimes the first time you pick up a script and read it, you might give your best performance.
Right.
But a lot of us, you're going to suck pretty badly.
You're going to suck. And I also think, speaking to that, and maybe we can
please.
I don't want to take too much time. But I think even beyond just us actually kind of sucking at the start of something, there's also so many arbitrary obstacles that come up in this industry that can feel really, really personal. And I think, yet again, another thing that I'm really grateful for was this really tough experience I had, like right at the beginning of my career. I was in Texas. I just shot something in Texas. And on Friday, my agents called and they were like, hey, remember that big Civil War drama pilot you auditioned for a month ago? Well, they're recasting the female lead. They're seeing you and two other women on Monday. We need you to do this to do this.
Do you have
test.
to go to Texas?
I was in Texas.
Okay.
I needed to go to LA. I was in Texas filming. I needed to come back out to LA. And so, anyway, this is a whole very long story, but I started driving out there and I broke down in New Mexico and I ended up hitchhiking all the way to California. It's a whole, that's
when
a
was
whole
this?
other story. I was 21. This is a whole other, or no, I was 22. That is its own story, but,
Oh my God. Well, no, you please tell those stories.
Okay. So basically, me and my friend Raquel, we start driving back out to California. And we break down in Lordsburg, New Mexico at a truck stop. And then this guy, this truck driver,
Perfect.
Joe, he's like, hey, my wife drives a Prius. Do you want me to take a look at this car? Because I was driving a Prius. So the Prius is totally broken. And I'm like freaking out because I have to be, this is Sunday afternoon and the thing is Monday morning. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get to LA. And he's like, well, this is really weird, but like I'm going to LA. My delivery's in LA. Like, do you want to ride? And so somehow Raquel and I, our sweet little 22-year-old girl selves, were like, this is a good idea. Raquel will get in a tow truck with this strange man and go one way with my car, and I'll get in a truck with a strange man going the other way to California. This was my one free card. I do not condone
Usually this is how horror movies
with,
start.
strange men. Yeah. No, I got so lucky.
And that's how I met my boyfriend.
And that's how I met my boyfriend. No. So I'm in this truck with Joe, and that was his whole own experience. I can't believe I'm talking about this. But anyway, I did take a lot of precautions. I took pictures of his driver's license and his license plate and sent him to everybody I knew. He talked on the phone with my parents. Like, he actually ended up being like a lovely person.
Okay.
Anyway, but it took me, I hitchhiked for 13 hours with this guy, Joe, and I make it to LA. And then I go to the test in the morning and I do a great job. I feel really good about it. It's like really good. And again, I'm not like the greatest actor yet, but it was a role that I was so right for. And it required me to play cello, and I've like fit the description of the character perfectly. And I was like, this could be it. Like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
Super excited.
And that would make sense because the story's crazy.
I'm going to tell Jimmy Fallon this,
exactly,
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm having all these thoughts about it. And then after the test, Lena calls me and she's like, honey, I need you to come into the office. I want to talk to you about this in person. And I was like, oh, okay. So I go and I meet her in our office and she's like,
Joe's there.
And Joe's there. No. And I meet her in her office and she's like, so honey, they loved you. They thought that you were like 5 or 6 pounds too heavy for the role. And they're shooting at the end of this week. So they went with this other girl. And mind you, the character is literally described as buxom. I'm also like 5'4" and 120 pounds. Like,
but you're also tiny.
I'm tiny.
Yeah.
I'm tiny. I'm small.
Yeah.
And once again, who knows if that's what they actually told her,
yeah,
or not? But it was what was told to me, and it was this really interesting crux for me. I was like, okay, I'm at a crossroads right here because I can either take this on and make whatever standard is set in the moment for myself and my body and me as an artist, or I can find my value and my worth elsewhere and define it for myself. And it was a really hard thing to be presented with at 22.
Yeah, I mean, that's like
it's insane, especially since this industry is so physically based. Like you're so judged based on, and your opportunities are defined by what you look like. And so it was this really, really interesting crux for me. And I was like, okay, I just have to decide that my worth and my value is separate from my ability to meet whatever standard is set in the moment. I have to get it from somewhere else. And so it was this, once again, like a really clarifying experience. And I think I'm, again, really lucky I have these like scientist parents because like how I looked was never a topic of conversation growing up. I didn't even realize that my appearance could help me get jobs until I came to LA. And suddenly everybody was talking about my face or my body or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm physically attractive.
Is there a grossness to that too?
Oh yeah,
of like,
I was like, ew. When I first got here, I was really grossed out. I was really eked out by that. I was like, why are all of these people equating my value with my appearance? And I'm so glad that it was like this really like blasphemous thing in my mind, because I was raised by parents who did not make that a priority for me. And so I came to LA with this sort of like sense of self that was separate from that. And it has made a wealth of difference. It's how I was able to get through that experience of being told I was too fat for something when I'm a size 2 or something stupid. And being able to not take that on. And I just like, as a female performer, I've really tried to communicate that, particularly to women, that you just, you got to just really love yourself and really, really take good care of yourself and not let other people's opinion of you define how you feel.
That's so hard, yeah.
Oh, it's insane.
God, no, I was talking to another actor, and she was talking about the gym, and she had saying how many guys talk to her at the gym, and I was shocked, because I was like, I've never been talked to at the gym. I thought the gym was the time where you're in your own personal hell for an hour and you sweat a lot and then you leave and you don't look at anybody in the eye and you're just unfortunately having to share a space. And I'm like, you get talked to? Like, that's just, but it is interesting for females, and kind of what you just expressed a little bit is that, it's amazing, I guess, in some ways to be able to have doors open in certain ways because of a look. And we are in a show business and all that stuff, but at the same time, I don't know, like I don't know.
It's tricky navigating that, because you are the product you're selling, and how you maintain yourself does directly affect your ability to be employed a lot of the time. And so it's really tricky line to navigate of like understanding that that's a reality, but also separating how you actually feel about yourself from that reality. It's very tricky.
Yeah, and then you can't also because then if you get it entrenched in those, like you can't be like, well, I need to get a compliment today, or I'm not worth,
right, or I'm not, or like if I don't get 1,000 likes on my Instagram photo today, I'm not pretty anymore.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's social media. Well, how do you find social media as an actor?
Wow. Well, it's been really interesting lately, because I just did this Passion Flicks movie with another student here at the Kahn, Casey Diedrich, and so Passion.
Wait, what is that?
So Passion Flicks, it's this movie called Driven, and it's so Passion Flicks is a company. It's a really cool company. It's female founded, and it's they bought all of these rights to really famous romance novels, and then they turned them into movies. And they're all written by women, they're all directed by women, and the target audience is women. So it's really cool. It's love stories for women by women, basically. But I did this movie Driven with Casey Diedrich, who's another actor from the Kahn, and I now have all of these really passionate fans of the book who follow me on Instagram and have seen the movies and are like big fans now. And like I have fan pages like Olivia Applegate Daily.
Have you been doing this like for a couple years, or is this just?
Well, these things I shot this.
Do they
movie,
just turn and burn? Like they're just.
Well, I shot this movie in May. These things just started happening
in May.
In May.
Oh, so they like shoot it really quick, put it out really quick.
Yeah, like it's already released. It had a 2-month turnaround. It got released this month. It's crazy. They crank out material really, really fast. But point being, the social media aspect. I really try to keep a level ahead about all of that stuff and not put too much importance on it. But I recently, like my social media following has increased drastically since doing this Passion Flicks movie, because there's all of these romance novel fans. And now I have this sort of really captive, passionate female audience who is really engaged in my social media and thinks very highly of me as a human being. And so
you can't put any like
I'm like, it's like a weird position to be in. I'm like, oh man, all of a sudden my Instagram is no longer personal, it is professional. And that has been an interesting thing that has recently happened. And so now I'm navigating, what does it mean to have impact on a group of women with something as simple as my Instagram page.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how I feel.
I think we're
about
all
social media
navigating those waters together. I mean, it is. I was talking with another actor. I think there's a couple of actors here that are trying to build their social media following up. And I'm sometimes of the mind of like, well, is that the most fun for you? Because then you're just literally doing it with the I'm just doing this to build the audience, which is a total valid point, But then they're like, oh, well, doesn't that take away from like, this is your expression for you and your friends and family. It's another one of those weird things that actors have to navigate.
And I don't know, I maybe am really idealistic in saying this, but I feel like the most exciting things happen when you're coming from a really genuine place. And so for me with social media, I've always tried to keep it really genuine. And then I got really lucky and got this movie that increased my social media by a lot. And now I have this interesting thing about like, what should I say? What do I want to say? What sort of responsibility do I have? It's really weird. It's
it's a lot
to Wild West, man. It's the new frontier.
I was reading this article about Netflix and they were talking about, the reason so many shows succeed on Netflix is because all they need is a small slice of an audience, because they specify their shows to like, well, we want 18 to 34 Hispanics to watch this. We want so if they can get that small slice, they're good. Like, it doesn't have to be huge numbers, but if they know who exactly they're targeting, they know exactly what they want to do. I mean, how do you, using that kind of same, I guess, equation as an actor, who do you describe yourself as an actor now, and what are you targeting? I mean, I guess, what are the goals for yourself, and who are you?
That's such a great question. So I see myself as a multi-hyphenate artist, and it's interesting because I've just come back to that realization. Because the start of my career was I was acting, but I was also singing, and I was also saying no to all of it, and like all of this stuff. And and now I realize, like, oh yeah, I am an artist, and for a long time I thought that I had to just be an actor, and I had to just be a very specific type of actor. I had to be plays 18 to 27, leading lady, white, has an ethereal quality, probably plays professional pretty well thing.
Yeah,
and that's like,
yeah. I love the 18 to 27.
Yeah,
I love that us as actors think in this like 7-year block. So
right,
like, I'm now 27 to 32.
Right,
like
exactly. And so that's how I'd been thinking of it. I'd been like, I have to just take this tiny slice, this like the most obvious slice of myself, and be that thing and do that really, really well and grind it out in auditions. And now what I'm realizing is that that's, at least for me in my career, that hasn't been the actual currency. That hasn't been the actual powerful thing or effective thing. What's effective is me being like, oh, I really, really enjoy writing, and I have this story I want to tell, and it comes from this place of enjoyment and the thing that lights me up, and then that's what actually works out. So now I market myself as a multi-hyphenate. I'm an actress, a singer, and a writer, and a director. And that's how I market myself, because that's what I actually love to do. And so I guess it's interesting because I just had a meeting yesterday where I had to talk about how I see myself and what I'm wanting in my career and all of these things. And I guess if I were
was it a podcast?
It wasn't a podcast. It was like a meeting with a human. But anyway, so I really see myself kind of going down this track of like. I really, really like what Britt Marling has done. I really, really like what...
Because Britt Marling did that Netflix show that she created.
The OA.
Or she's a huge part of.
Right. And so the way that I look at my career and the things that I value in it, first and foremost is like, do I like the story? Do I like what we're putting out there? And then do I like the people who are making it? Do I admire them as creatives? Do I enjoy them? And then do I like want to do it? And it sounds like a really privileged position to be in, but what I found is when you're doing it from a place of enjoyment, when you're doing it with people you admire and a project you feel excited and passionate about, that pays off tenfold. Like I just booked a role on this HBO show, and the reason I got that is because the woman who directed that project, she and I did a itty-bitty passion project in Texas, this no-budget indie feature. And we all lived together in my friend's mom's house and shot this movie for no money. And then it ended up going to like Cannes, right? And it did everything you'd ever want an indie film to do. And And she and I worked on that together and remembered each other from that and had always wanted to put each other in each other's projects. And she got this opportunity to direct this HBO thing. And she was like, Olivia, I finally have a role for you. Here you go. And
what show is this?
This is Euphoria. It's this new show
it's
on
coming
HBO.
out soon.
It's coming out eventually. Yeah. And what I guess I want to encourage people to remember is that yeah, LA is a grind, but if you can stay connected to that spark, to that actual currency that is relationship and passion for something, that may seem idealistic, but my experience has been that is what actually pays off. Staying committed to that thing and really recognizing what that looks like for you and pursuing that. Because
have you turned down projects because the answer was no on any of those things?
I just turned down one last month because first of all, it was an incredible script. I loved the script. It was a female lead, but it was about this woman getting sex trafficked by her boyfriend. And me as a person, I don't think we need another story about a woman being objectified and victimized in that way. Because the ultimate thing that this story was saying was not actually uplifting for women.
Even though you loved the script
even though
and how
the
it was
script
written.
itself was actually excellent and the character was well rounded, but I was like, me, Olivia, like it doesn't feel right to do this project. It just doesn't. And I like honored that and I didn't do it, and then I got a pilot instead, and it was bomb and like really awesome.
Yeah.
And so I just encourage people to believe that they have a little more agency than they think they do, and that truly following the things that feel good to do can really, truly pay off in your career. And to not feel desperate, to know your value and know what you value and make your decisions based on that, not on are you 18 to 27 and brunette and skinny enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't say anything better than that. I mean, I could keep talking, but that's amazing. So where can we find you? Where on socials? Where can we see more?
So I can only handle Instagram. I don't have a Twitter or anything.
That's smart.
I'm just it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I'm at Olivia Applegate on Instagram, and then I'll be playing Lynn on Dirty John. That should be out, I believe, the end of this year.
Yeah, I think I just saw a little teaser last week.
Yeah.
Just like a very quick little teaser because I watch all the Housewives shows on Bravo.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll be in the third episode of that series. Euphoria should be out next year. And then the Passion Flix movie, Driven, it's a series on their website. It's a streaming platform just like Netflix. So you can go to Passion Flix and see me and Casey Diedrich in that. And then otherwise, if you go to YouTube, you can see me on America's Got Talent.
Are you still, you said, I mean, are you in another band right now? Are you?
Well, it's funny. This is again, so how I just was talking about how I turned down that movie that was like the sex trafficking movie. I did this pilot in Utah, and I have really wanted to get back into music. I haven't really been doing it recently because I've been riding the horse in the direction it's been going, which has been acting. But I was like, I really want to do some music, I think. I get there, and I'm doing this pilot, and it turns out the executive producer originally was in music and was a ghostwriter for all these top 40 artists. And he found out that I was a singer and like watched my stuff from America's Got Talent. And he's like, so we should make an album.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what? But that's all speaking to, I know it sounds like really woo-woo, but like trust yourself and do the projects that feel like they're the right ones to do. And yeah, everybody like has to do like some projects that they don't want to do to pay bills and stuff. But like whenever it's in your power, like really follow your intuition about some stuff, because now I'm working with this guy and doing some music.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. You guys, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, if you are interested in finding out more about where Olivia has studied, where she coaches, where she teaches, please check us out, lesliekahn.com. You can even give us a call at 323-969-9900. Thank you guys so much for listening. Yay. Please, if you have actor friends, please tell them about this podcast. It's a good way to pass an hour when you're driving to that commercial audition in Santa Monica. Or when you're at the gym. Hopefully your guys aren't talking to you. I don't know. Anyways, we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Okay, so that was my conversation with Olivia Applegate. She's amazing, right? I hope you guys, if you take anything from this, that you will go home today or tonight and you will actually put in some work. I have to go put in some work myself. So goodbye. We will talk to you next time.